In this video, I will be going over examples and demonstrations, things to know about drawing hair. So for my example, I'm using the photo that I'm using for this project, but what you need to do is look at the hair texture that's in your photograph and decide, will this information best suit you, or do you need to do a little bit of research and find other examples of how to draw different hair textures depending on the hair that you're drawing in your photo. So I'm going to continue with my photo, but there are videos below of different hair textures, and you might need to do your own research looking up either photo examples or video examples of how to draw different textures of hair, and that might help you even more. So I still have my ebony pencil supplies that I'm using today. And as a reminder, a smaller eraser, if you can find one or make one work for you, is gonna get you smaller details. So one thing that I always think back to is when I was little, I used to draw hair on people as like lines of hair. So if this is someone's head, okay, I used to draw from the top of the head to the bottom of the hair, these strands. So sometimes when I would do self-portraits of me when I was younger, I would take a yellow colored pencil because I had blonde hair, and I would do this technique. Now our hair catches highlights and shadows, so it is not going to be the same tone from the top of our heads all the way to wherever the hair ends, no matter how short or long it is. There are some spaces on our heads where it will be a solid value, but it will not continue throughout the whole head of hair. So we just want to keep that in mind. We're trying to grow as artists with how we perceive value. So what I'm going to look for in my photo is areas where the hair is a little bit darker, right? There's more of a shadow here. The hair is a little bit lighter here. It's catching a little bit of a highlight. Shadows underneath because her hair is moving up and around. So it goes from darker right here to lighter to darker to lighter to darker again. And then there's a little bit of a highlight here as well. I also have like smaller details of hair, or what I like to say, like little wisps of hair that come out here. What I'm gonna do is start with more of the solid spaces, and as I get more and more detailed, then I'll start to add some of those things and more of the detail of the hair coming over the skin tone. So we need to be patient. The things that we do first aren't always going to look accurate, and then I'll go over some things with curls of the hair as well. And then I'll show a few other things for different hair types along the way. So I want to make sure that I'm using my ebony pencil still with the pencil on its side, building up layers of value. So even if a space is really dark, I'm not pressing too much with my ebony pencil right away. I'm still gonna use the same technique where I'm using layers of value. Now what I'm being careful of here is I can't really see which direction these hairs are going because it's so dark, but what I can see is the hair next to it. I can see that they go from the skin on the face back with a curve. So I'm gonna start to do that here because I can assume that the hair is going back in this direction. So instead of just filling it in up and down or side to side, I'm going to start to use what I know about human anatomy and hair and how it works to start filling in this space so that the direction of my pencil is correct. Then what I can do is blend a little bit over the top to start kind of filling in this space using my blending stump in that curved motion and direction as well. And I want to get this value kind of right up to the skin tone so that I can do more with the like little wisps of hair that are over her, the side of her forehead. So I'm going to bring this right up to the clip that is in her hair. It's holding her hair back. I'm not even going to worry about that clip right now. I'm just going to worry about the hair around it. I'll fill that in later. I can continue to add more layers here. This is obviously going to get a lot darker over time. But what I'm going to do with my pencil now, if I want to get these little details of hair in, is I'm going to bring my pencil in with that curve. If I start with my pencil here, that can work as well, but I might get kind of harsh marks on the face that I don't want to get. So I can work kind of back and forth in different directions to make this pull into the skin tone a little bit more naturally. And then I can see that that kind of stops right here. And then the hairs kind of start to go in a different direction. They're facing down. And then they continue down next to the ear. So I'm just gonna start with some lines here. And then I'm gonna blend over the top just a little bit, just lightly kind of dragging my pencil to make the values look a little bit less just like solid lines everywhere. Gives it a little bit more variety. This space got too dark. And then if I want to redefine some, I can keep bringing my pencil over, erase, and kind of keep going like that. So this area, I think just needs a little bit more blending. So I'm just going to keep editing things as I go. But it's really hard for me to tell right now, like, if this is good enough or not. I'm going to keep working my way around the forehead. And as I see everything come together, I can come back to these spaces, and there's definitely more work to be done here. So I'm just taking this nice and slow, being willing to say, hey, this isn't perfect yet, but I need to keep working. I need to keep filling these spaces in. This area is just kind of like solid black. So I'm just filling this in dark. Still using the direction of my blending stump to follow with where or what direction I think the hair would be going. Even if I can't see it in that space, I can kind of guess from how the hair is styled. Then what I want to do here with the part of the hair, there's just a few different value changes here. So one technique is to make the edges kind of uneven. And since it's dark this way, and I'm still going the direction that I think that the hair is going with my pencil. I'm using my pencil direction intentionally. And then it would go more straight down on this side of the clip that's in her hair. And then what I can do is kind of drag my blending stump in an uneven way just to get like a light gray going in the center. I still have more work to do here, but that's gonna let me see that part a little bit more. I'm gonna drag some of this ebony pencil back into that space and then fill in the solid area, still moving my blending stump in the direction that I think the hair is going as well. And then I can kind of crisp up my edges again. I could do this type of step later, like where I erase and kind of crisp things up a little bit, or do some details. I could wait and do that later, but I just don't want to forget. Sometimes I'll do that right away. Sometimes I'll save that kind of work for later, and it depends on the space that I'm working on. So again, not perfect, but it's getting there. I'm gonna have to do more layers to darken that space. But one other thing that I can do to start to get some of these hairs to show back up is I can drag my eraser, if I use this thin eraser, here to get some of those hairs. Now this looks way more extreme than what I see in my photo, but that's just the first technique. So I'm gonna erase a little bit and then drag my blending stump back over so that I can still see that kind of texture showing through, but it's not nearly as extreme. So sometimes those little tiny minor changes are going to add a lot of detail to your drawing. Everything that we do doesn't have to like stand out and be the most bold thing in our work. So when I'm going this way with her bangs that are going over her face, or like that start on the top of the head and then drop down over the face, what I wanna do is really focus on the direction of my pencil. So I'm gonna show more of that as I keep drawing later, but it's kind of the same technique that I was just doing here. So what I'd rather focus on for this video is moving on to the curls of the hair here, because that can be kind of tricky. So when hair moves and it's moving around us and there's light around us, there's going to be shadows and highlights. So as the hair moves, you wanna watch, where is it dark? Where does it get medium gray? Where does it get lightest? Where does it get dark again? And I'm gonna start with kind of an overall dark gray, or like the kind of black. My pencil is only gonna get to a dark gray. Okay, and then it's lighter here, and then it's darker. So I'm just gonna leave this the white of the paper for right now, where it goes dark to the light of the paper to dark again. Because then when I blend over the top, I can kind of turn it into light gray. So I'm gonna do that same technique here, filling this in darker where it's dark. And my pencil is not ending at a harsh line, right? These lines all end at different points so that it looks more natural with how like the strands of our hair happen. All right, and then it's a little bit darker down here. And again, I'm going to just drag my pencil in the direction that the hair is supposed to be going. So again, dark to light to dark again. Then I can use my blending stump. I'm going to use the larger blending stump for the bigger area. And then I can bring this smaller blending stump in. Remember to hold it more towards the top so it doesn't snap in half. If it does, well, we'll have two. All right, so now it looks like this hair is curling. And what I want to do is bring back some of the background. I kind of blended that space in too much. And bring out some more kind of random highlights. So just with the point of my eraser, bringing some of those back out, taking my blending stump over some of them to make them look a little bit more uneven or natural so they all don't look the same. So it's gonna start to look like it's curling. Same thing down here. My pencil will go dark to light to dark again, but I'm gonna move my pencil this direction because this curl is moving from side to side instead of up and down. So again, the direction of your pencil is going to be very helpful. So I'm just gonna start where this curl is right here. I'm not gonna worry about what's next to it. Sometimes it helps to take a piece of paper. Maybe we can even block some of our image if there's just too much information and it's overwhelming. And I can just focus in right here. So I'm gonna move my pencil in the direction that this curl is moving. Again, all dark on one side, and then it's gonna have these uneven edges so that it looks more natural, like hair texture. Comes out a little bit further right here, so that's gonna add more realism. And then in a little bit towards the outside of the curl, and then back out for the end. The bottom of that curl is all pretty dark. All right, this is the other darker side. Again, it ends more naturally, so this whole curl doesn't end with just one straight line. It ends first here and then comes out a little bit wider and then juts out to the side here. Those kinds of things are going to make this look more realistic. All right, and then I'm ready for blending. I'm just gonna start with my larger blending stump using the darker edge. Just randomly kind of drag some out further. Others are just gonna stay towards the darker edges. And that can just go right over, because that's all gonna be dark. Take my smaller blending stump in. This is where too, if you have textures that don't look blended, you can leave marks of the pencil without blending. That's fine as long as that's the texture you're looking for. And it depends on your own personal drawing style. I do tend to blend my work a little bit more. Sometimes I challenge myself by not blending, so it all depends on the look you want your drawing to have. So now this curl is gonna look more three-dimensional because it goes from dark to light to dark again and unevenly. So what I'm gonna do is continue around the hair like this, and then later I'll make sure my pencil is really sharp, and I'll come back in to do like just some actual strands of hair, because I can see some of those there, and I can see some little like wisps of hair sticking out across the edge. Like this one comes down this way. I just try to avoid doing those too early because I like to do a lot of blending first, and then I can come back over the top. So I can blend these some of the little wisps as well. And some of them I can just use my blending stump for, like the little hairs that come off to the side here. And that's all gonna make this look way more realistic later. But again, we can always come back for those types of details. So different types of hair textures are just gonna take different types of practice and research. So one tool that I don't want you to forget about while we go through this project is your eraser. So if I have hair that might be like shorter or more curly, I might start with my pencil making more random marks. You might have like short hair, so we gotta get your pencil nice and sharp. Mine's not the sharpest, but it'll work. So you might be working a lot shorter and really like just layering up those short lines. But if we're working with a space that has different types of textures. One thing that you can try, so again, I'm just kind of randomly moving my pencil and blending some around these like curly Q motions or like little tiny marks. And then kind of patting my ebony pencil onto the paper so that I'm not blending it all solid. It's just kind of like almost like stippling with the blending stump. I could also do some stippling here if I need to get different textures to show up, and kind of pat this on the table. Again, I'm still using the side. So if I did this with the very tip of this, it's gonna start to push it in. So I'm still just tapping it with the side here, kind of like this, but over the top of a surface that looks more solid. Then I can take the point of an eraser. Here, I'm still gonna use my smaller eraser because I think it'll work better in this spot. And just erase these kind of like random spots. And I have to apply a little bit of pressure to really remove a thicker layer of ebony pencil. I start to kind of rotate my eraser, and I can get different like highlights in that space. Let's see, another technique would be kind of an overall gray. And doing some sort of texture like this, and if we do some stippling with the eraser, we can get that texture to show through, or stippling with the blending stump. If we intentionally want to get some ebony pencil onto the blending stump, we can create a dark space, run this over the top, and then use that to get some texture. I could start to rotate my blending stump, maybe that will help. So play around with techniques we've been learning this whole school year. Have fun playing around with hair texture.